between the rope-a-dope and clowning and a few things when he knew that he had...
The day is October 2nd, 1980. Muhammad Ali is set to face off against the heavyweight champion of the world, Larry Holmes. And while most of us know Muhammad Ali for being one of the greatest boxers of all time, this wasn't the same Ali. He was nearing 39 years old at the time of this fight, and he had been taking a noticeable decline, while Larry Holmes, on the other hand, was almost 10 years younger and in his prime. This fight should have never happened. Father Time is undefeated, and it just wasn't worth it for the old Ali. But the fight happened, and it went about as bad as you can imagine. Old Muhammad Ali got beat up for 10 rounds straight until Ali's corner threw in the towel and Larry Holmes won by TKO. It was so bad that people now look back at it and question why the fight wasn't stopped sooner. It's a hard fight to watch, and for all the people who grew up watching Ali in his prime, it was heartbreaking. It was so bad that Larry Holmes himself was crying after his victory in the locker room. And while it's nice that Larry had this much respect for Ali and felt bad about beating him that badly, it was only about to get worse for him. Because little did he know, a 14-year-old Mike Tyson had just watched his hero get beat up. Muhammad Ali was Mike Tyson's idol, and while he was only a 14-year-old, Mike had vengeance on his mind. And he made a promise that someday he would grow up and avenge Muhammad Ali. And it wouldn't be until 8 years later in 1988 when Mike Tyson would finally get his shot against Larry Holmes. And in case you aren't aware, Mike Tyson in 1988 is probably one of the most scary human beings to ever live. The man was an absolute wrecking ball, knocking out and embarrassing every fighter they put in front of him, and he made it look easy. But Larry Holmes wasn't just any old regular fighter. This guy beat up his childhood hero, and Mike took this personally. So these two finally get in the ring against each other, fighting for the title. But right before the match starts, a 47-year-old Muhammad Ali walks up to Mike Tyson and whispers in his ear, "Go get him for me." Mike Tyson was already the most terrifying fighter of all time and had all the motivation in the world to rip this guy's head off. And then Muhammad Ali himself adds even more fuel to the fire and tells him to go get him for him. This could not be a worse situation for Larry Holmes. A prime Mike Tyson that just got hyped up by Muhammad Ali is standing right in front of him. And well, I think you know what happens next.
Larry Holmes cannot continue that round after round. Oh, a big right hand. Down goes the former champion. He was nailed right on the button. His legs are gone, and in comes Mike. It was a big right hand. Larry's nailed again. He goes. I don't know if he'll be able to continue. It's up to 4 and 5 is 7. How do you feel? It's up to 7 and 8. And that was able to do it against Ronaldo Snipes. He goes with a big right hand. The left one come inside. There's the left. There's the right. Larry's ready to go again. He's going to hang on, or they'll stop the fight. Down he goes. Larry's hurt. It's all over. In both of the count. It was a vicious. It came like a bolt.
It took Mike Tyson 8 years to avenge his idol, and he did it in spectacular fashion. And while Mike probably would have won this fight anyway, he channeled something in this fight that can make even the best of the best 10 times stronger. And this is what I like to call the art of revenge. Revenge is a huge motivator in the world of sports, and we've seen this motivation bring out the best in athletes. From coming back from losses to answering back trash talk, success is the best revenge in sports. And in the world of basketball, nobody enjoyed getting revenge more than Michael Jordan. MJ is known as being one of the greatest basketball players of all time, and he didn't become this by accident. After the Last Dance documentary came out, we all got to see how ridiculously competitive the guy is and how he became as successful as he did. He would take the most minuscule, unimportant moments ever and take them as a personal challenge. Is this a healthy way of going about life? Probably not, but it was just enough added motivation for him to go out every night and torch any poor soul they put in front of him. But in most cases, the best revenge comes after taking a big loss, or multiple losses. The feeling of falling down and then getting back up and overcoming is about as good as it gets. And while we all kind of look at Michael Jordan as this unbeatable god that never lost, this isn't the case. In the late 80s, MJ had a real kryptonite with the Bad Boy Pistons, led by Isaiah Thomas. The Chicago Bulls and the Detroit Pistons were both Eastern Conference teams and the two best in their conference. Michael Jordan was still Michael Jordan and putting up great numbers, but the Chicago Bulls hadn't become the juggernaut they would later on. So, these two teams matched up for the first time in the 1988 Eastern Conference semifinals, and the Pistons absolutely dominated this young Bulls team. This Pistons team was known for playing harsh, aggressive defense, which definitely held back Jordan a lot. They weren't able to completely stop him, but he definitely was affected badly by this type of defense, which led the Detroit Pistons to beat the Bulls in 5 games. The Pistons then went on to make it to the finals against the Lakers and Magic Johnson, and the Pistons lost. But everybody knew that this Pistons-Bulls rivalry was far from over. They met again the next year in the 1989 Eastern Conference Finals, and the Bulls started off pretty good. They took a 2-1 series lead, and everything seemed good until Game 4 came along, where the bad boy Pistons essentially beat up Michael Jordan for an entire game. The defense that they were playing would not have been allowed today, and many found this type of strategy to be extremely dirty and cheap. You can call it dirty all you want, but it worked, and the Pistons won the series in Game 6, beating Michael Jordan and the Bulls for 2 years in a row. The Pistons then went on to sweep the Showtime Lakers in the finals, giving the Pistons their first championship. The Bulls were right there. They had the talent to beat the Pistons and the Lakers, and now they had a pissed off Michael Jordan. So, the 1990 playoffs come around, and of course, the Bulls and the Pistons are back facing each other again in the Eastern Conference Finals. The series didn't start too great for the Bulls, with the Pistons winning the first 2 games, and then Jordan dropped a 47-point masterclass in Game 3. And then in Game 4, he dropped 42 points. This Michael Jordan was insane. He was sick of losing and he knew it was his time to shine. The two teams went back and forth, each winning games against each other, and the series was forced to 7 games. This Game 7 was their opportunity to finally get the Pistons back after 2 straight years of losing to them. And while the Bulls tried their hardest, it just wasn't enough to beat the defending champions, and the Bulls lost this game. For the 3rd year in a row, Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls lost to the Detroit Pistons, and the Pistons went on to win their 2nd championship in a row. This was crushing for the Bulls, and losing 3 times in a row to the same team has got to be damaging to your confidence. Unless you're Michael Jordan. By 1991, the Bulls had become an unstoppable team. Scottie Pippen was really coming into his own, Phil Jackson was becoming the greatest coach of all time, and Michael Jordan was reaching a whole new level. And for the 4th year in a row, the Chicago Bulls and the Detroit Pistons matched up against each other. And well, let's just say that Jordan took those losses personally. Michael Jordan and the Bulls dominated the Pistons for 4 straight games, and MJ finally got his revenge after 3 straight years of losing. After this, the Bulls went on to face the Showtime Lakers in the finals, and they won, giving Michael Jordan his first championship and beginning what's looked at as the greatest career in NBA history. As far as the Pistons, the next year they would lose in the very first round, and after that they barely made the playoffs again, while Michael Jordan went on to win 6 championships. Michael Jordan was a different breed of human, and that 6-0 record in the finals will always be legendary, but it's funny how people honestly rarely bring up how MJ lost to the Pistons for 3 years in a row. I mean, that's pretty significant to the guy's legacy, and it's never brought up. And the answer why is pretty simple: history is written by the winners. And while the Pistons did win for those 3 years, MJ ended up embarrassing their whole team and beat them so bad that people forgot those 3 years even happened. MJ got his revenge and continued to get revenge every year he won a championship. And there's a chance that without those 3 years of MJ losing to the Pistons, we may not have gotten one of the most incredible careers in sports history. While there's hundreds of different stories of people and teams getting revenge in sports, there's only one more story of revenge that I'm gonna go over, and it comes from one of the best UFC fighters ever, Israel Adesanya. Izzy has been one of the most entertaining MMA fighters of all time and one of the most successful. But just like many others on this list, he had his kryptonite as well. And his kryptonite was unfortunately one of the most intimidating fighters of all time, Alex Pereira. This man just looks scary and has also built himself up in the world of MMA through some pretty brutal knockouts. But both of these guys got their starts in very similar ways through the world of kickboxing. And Israel Adesanya was an amazing kickboxer back in 2016. So good that he was able to compile together a 11-fight win streak. Then in April of 2016, he was set to face off against a guy named Alex Pereira. The fight seemed even, but people believed that Izzy did have the advantage against him. And while they had a pretty good fight against each other, Alex Pereira was able to successfully defeat Izzy by a unanimous decision. People look back at this fight and argue that Izzy should have won, and I can see why, but either way, Izzy took his first loss in the kickboxing world. Thankfully, Izzy was given a rematch the following year and an opportunity to get back the loss. So the two rematched, and this happened.
主平都打到回笼了。
Israel Adesanya got knocked out cold in the third round and taunted by Pereira right after. To get knocked out in general must be a terrible feeling, but to get knocked out in a rematch to a guy you almost had a chance at beating has gotta be brutal. Even Alex Pereira's son made fun of Izzy after by falling right in front of him on purpose just to rub it in. And this was the last time that these two would face off in kickboxing, and Izzy would take his talents to the UFC and become one of the best rising stars in the business. Pereira stuck to kickboxing, and it seemed like Izzy wasn't too worried about the whole situation.
At the end of the day, no one knows who the he is, and he's gonna be that guy when I'm world champion, when I'm a legend. He's gonna be at some pub talking some shit about, I beat that guy one time.
Alex had gotten him early, but it was clear that Izzy was becoming the more successful of the two. I mean, he was the cover of the UFC's video game, and he became the UFC's middleweight champion of the world. Things were looking pretty good for Israel Adesanya. Everything seemed alright, until he showed up again. Alex Pereira entered the UFC, and instantly people brought up their past. Seeing Izzy with the belt, defending it against the guy that beat him twice in a row was just too good not to make happen. It was a match made in heaven, and they capitalized. This fight was in November of 2022, over 5 years since their last bout, and in this time, Adesanya had become the face of fighting. The storyline made sense, getting his revenge back for those two losses. Everything was pointing towards a Israel Adesanya comeback story. There's no way that Izzy loses 3 times in a row, right?
Oh, here's the left hook. Two more. Down goes the champion. Pineda trying to close the show. That'll do it. And the undisputed middleweight champion.
Alex Pereira defeated Israel Adesanya for the 3rd time in a row and stole the middleweight championship away from him. Everybody was shocked. The most popular name in the UFC just got dethroned. And just to add insult to injury, the UFC changed their video game cover to Alex Pereira after he beat him, like right after. But Izzy didn't get to this level for no reason. He's a fighter in every sense of the word, and he wasn't ready to quit just yet. So, their 4th fight was scheduled for April of 2023, and if Izzy lost this, he would lose the shot at the UFC championship again and probably never get another shot. And he'd have to go the rest of his life knowing he lost to this guy 4 times in a row. No matter the accolades or the championships, that reality would have been hanging over him forever. Losing at a level like this is one of the most deflating, terrible feelings imaginable. But losing and then getting your revenge is about as good as it gets.
That's so dangerous.
Oh, counter right from Adesanya. Pineda down and out. Order restored. Adesanya has finally done it.
He got him back.
Israel Adesanya.
He got him.
In one of the most incredible moments in combat sports history, Izzy knocks out Alex Pereira. This fight gives me chills to this day. After 3 straight losses, finally getting this win in that type of fashion is just beautiful. Oh, and remember that kid from earlier? Alex Pereira's kid that fell in front of Izzy to make fun of him after he got knocked out? Well, Izzy remembered this. And the second he knocked him out, he instantly spotted Pereira's kid in the crowd and did it back to him. Is it a little insane to mock a kid after knocking out his dad? Yes, but this level of pettiness is what makes these people so great. And it's a good lesson in being humble in victory, because someday that cocky celebration might come back to bite you.
I looked for his kid and I pointed at him and I saw him and I was like, hey, just to remind him,